enough right now. I just go. For some reason, it's telling me my wireless connection is not great. Hopefully that doesn't keep up. Diana will be joining us in a minute. She's got a whole lot of stuff prepared for us to discuss, but hopefully we start seeing some people joining us soon. I know a lot of you were interested in hearing about this particular discussion. It will be maybe a little triggering for some people, but hopefully we can keep it focused on the importance of making sure that dog guardians and dogs have the support that they need. That's kind of basically the foundation of what we'll be talking about, is how to make sure that dog guardians and dogs are getting the behavior support they need, and how the industry is actually hurting that goal rather than being a good part of it. So let me see if I can invite Diana the way I normally would. If anybody has any questions or comments, or let us know whose land you're on, we love to do that. As far as my land acknowledgement, I am on Ute, Goshute, and Shoshone land here in northern Utah. We feel that it's important to recognize the Native peoples whose land this was and still is, and their rights to this land and their rights to make decisions around how this land is treated. They have been here a lot longer than we have and are much better at making sure the land is thriving. A lot of things we can learn from that we've sort of lost in the process of capitalism and colonialism and all those things that have changed our attitudes and honestly added a little bit of trauma into our lives. Let me check and see how Diana's doing. I sent her an invite. I sent Scott an invite as well, but he has something else going on right now, so he's unlikely to be able to come. But I figured I would invite him just in case something falls through and he can make it. I'm hoping we'll get a few different things discussed. Let me know if my connection is really, really bad. And maybe we'll have to start over. Normally Diana would have done this, but she has a storm going on, and that's usually when her internet has issues. We should start with me, see how it goes. I'm trying to get you to come on camera. There it goes.
Hey.
Thanks, Donna.
Hey. I'm on Hickory Apache in southern Ute land in south central Colorado.
Awesome.
And yeah, I have done a really good land acknowledgement last weekend at that event. And because I was able to tell people that I'm, as an immigrant, I'm really aware that I'm not on my own land. And so as an immigrant, I have a little bit of a different outlook or a different perspective. And even though I'm a U.S. citizen now, and we own the property that we are on, legally we own it, by deed, I'm still aware that this is not my land, and legally it is, morally and ethically.
By society's rules, right?
Yes. So yeah. So I had to just shift a little. We have the storm coming in. Yeah. So and being from Germany, a lot of my mindset has changed over the years, and especially since Scott kind of started spreading his influence,
Right.
and because over there, and that the contrast really is really apparent now to me, because I still hear my parents talk about the American West and the Native Americans, and I used to be just like that, and now I see how it contrasts with reality, and that's so yeah, it's a lot of shifting in my brain, and which is pretty neat. But being an immigrant, again, I have a different perspective on stuff a little bit anyway.
For sure. All right.
So,
We've
all
got a number of
right.
people already here. I'm so excited. Thank you guys for joining us. Hopefully this will
Yeah.
be a helpful, insightful discussion for you. And again, feel free to post some questions and comments, and we'll pop
And share.
those in as they fit into the discussion.
Yes. There's even somewhere on the screen there should be a button. If you feel like sharing this, you're welcome to share it with your groups or on your page. We really don't mind. Of course, we don't mind. But yeah, this, well, let's dive into it.
Absolutely. So Diana, you had some thoughts on this, I know. And was there something that triggered it in particular that you wanted to start out with?
Yeah. Well, I've wanted to do this talk for a long, long time, because there's always been something little that triggered a thought, and that was like an aha moment, just not science-related aha moment, but an aha moment within the industry, and or when I listen to other professionals talk. And I'm thinking like, no, we're going down the wrong road, the wrong path. And so it has been building up over months. And I've thought about going live before, but we've never really talked about it much. And I can't do live feeds by myself. I just can't do it.
It helps to have somebody to converse with and look at.
Yes, and just looking at myself is just not very rewarding to me. So, but here lately, there have been a few events that pushed me to actually want to do this. And so it was not just one specific event, but there were several. And so this conversation today is not just going to be about one specific topic, because everything that we're going to be talking about kind of goes hand in hand, even though it's tidbits of different things. But it all boils down to why the industry is failing dog parents, and how the industry is failing dog parents, and some of the questions, the wrong questions that we are asking, because the dog training industry is binary. You have balanced, and then you have reward based. So you have aversive and reward based, and so some of the events that triggered or pushed me to want to do this is, for one thing, last Saturday, I went to an event, a Dog Day festival here in my area. And there were only 10 vendors, so it was tiny, but the crowd was huge. So it was really, really awesome. And everybody that showed up brought their dogs, either one or two dogs. And every single dog was pulling. And every single person on the other end of the leash was pulling and correcting against them. There were some dogs on prong collars. I have seen one dog on a slip leash. There were several dogs on a harness, which was really nice to see too. There were dogs or dog owners or parents who wanted to come in, but their dogs were so overwhelmed that the, the dog parents took him back out. So they could not. So the event was an indoor event because there was so much wind. And so, but all dogs showed the same behaviors. And the funny thing was that all humans attached to the other end of the leash, every single one showed the same behaviors. So all the dogs acted alike and all the humans acted alike. And that was a really interesting observation. And of course, you know, my heart was like, all those people go there to have a good time because they actually really love their dog. And all the dogs are being put into that position, whether they liked it or not. And so I spent more time helping the people and their dogs than I spent at my table, and which was okay because I told them right from the get-go I have nothing to sell, and I just want everybody to have a good time. But so that was one of the things, talking to some of the people individually and seeing as to how they responded to some of the ADB knowledge and how new this stuff was to them. That was one of the deciding factors why I wanted to do this, because as high stress as that whole situation was, every single person that I worked with in that high stress environment ended up with a better relationship with their dog right then and there, even though there was so much going on. So much for dogs not being able to learn in high stress situations, and which is one of the issues that helps us fail our clients, or as a dog industry, you know, a dog training industry. And that stigma that dogs can't learn under stress. Well, how about we help the owner connect with their dog so that the dog doesn't have to feel so stressed? And we can do that even in high stress situations. And
right, we don't
because,
just shut down and you know, zone out when we're stressed.
yes,
When we have support, we're able to
yes, yes,
function and learn.
because those people came there to check things out, to network, and to you know, they came together as a community. And so as far as, well, you need to take that dog out of a high stress situation, you know, because your dog won't be able to respond to you, they won't be able to learn from you, and they're just, you're just going to flood them. Well, how about we help the owners so that they can help their pooch,
Right.
and all of a sudden
Lower
flooding is
the
not an
stress.
issue, you know, because flooding only happens if there is no emotional support. And but the owners were flooding themselves, the people were flooding themselves. And so human and dog could help each other. And so that is one of the aspects where the dog training industry fails. And is whether it's because they're lacking the knowledge themselves, I don't know, or because we keep attaching all those labels and not looking beyond those labels and not looking beyond the behaviors. And you know, our knowledge on this comes from neuroscience, and not only from neuroscience, but we can connect the neuroscience with what the indigenous people are still practicing. So we see that, we can see it every day if we just open our eyes, and we wouldn't need the science, but in the dog training industry, we have to have the science. So we
And
fail by using old science.
Yeah, and we're forgetting about that relationship half. And I know a lot of trainers talk about how their focus is on relationship, but the reality is that rewards aren't relationship, and we're learning that through ABA and through autism. We're starting to learn that rewards can actually be detrimental to relationship, and often are, rather than focusing on, hey, what do you need? How can I be there for you? How can I hear you? How can I support you? And we don't do that much with our dogs as trainers. We don't have that focus. Whereas guardians, that's all they want, right? But they think that that they're not allowed to have that because, oh, the dog's misbehaving, so I'm not allowed to connect with my dog right now because he's misbehaving. That'll reward his misbehavior. And so there's this extreme excessive focus on, do we like this or do we not like this, to the point where we're seeing this disconnection between owners and dogs that's resulting in behavior problems because we're so focused on fixing behavior that we're disconnecting guardians from their dogs. It's this disconnection of teacher and student, master and servant, right? Where there's no longer that emotional connection, and the guardians are trying to keep that emotional connection, which is, I guarantee, why all those people were, instead of doing what they were taught by their trainer, they were there at that event. They were there pulling on the leash, trying to deal with behavior in the moment, because they really wanted to be with their dogs. They wanted to connect and have an emotional moment with their dogs. And that's a lot of times, that's why, we talk so much about non-compliance in dog training. It's because what you're telling the owner to do is going against their natural instinct to just be with their dog. And so they're resisting because they just want to love on their dog, but they're being told, no, you can't do that. That will reward that bad behavior. And so you're getting this tug of war of, well, yeah, I do want a good, well-behaved dog, but I also want to feel connected to my dog. And they don't feel connected with their dog when they're constantly thinking about training.
And
I love what Mary said here. Sorry. Go ahead, Diana. I was going to just tell you a comment.
Things to do with their dogs that are not competition based. Having fun and learning in a supportive environment is priceless. Absolutely, totally. And and you made a good point on that, Alyssa, that the people are taking their dogs there because they want to be with their dog. And some trainers are just now starting to recognize that we need to recognize and meet the dog's needs, but they're still forgetting that the owners, the humans, have needs as well, and those needs are very, very rarely that the dog sits just because I give the dog a cue. That the need to be with the dog is that emotional connection. They want to have a pal. I see that every time when I talk to a prospective client, and once somebody calls me about dog training, no matter how dead set they are on obedience training, in that phone conversation, they always admit that in the end, all they want is a pal, have good companionship, and that
they think training is a means to that end. They think if I spend hours and hours and hours training this dog, I will end up with this pal that I want to be with, but it becomes this never-ending thing, right? The disconnection keeps continuing until now there's behavior issues, and now I have to deal with that, and it becomes a self-fulfilling, prophecy of, I'm training my dog to try and get him to be my friend, but in fact the training is actually disconnecting us, so now he's even worse off, and they never end up getting that relationship they're looking for.
And then they miss the fact that their dog is already their friend.
Yes. Exactly. He already adores you and wants to be around you, and honestly wants to listen to you. He just needs support in doing that. It's the whole, like with parenting, they talk about how kids are naturally good. Kids naturally want to follow direction. It's just their ability to regulate. They need your support. They need
Yes. They
you to hear them
need
and
they
validate them, and
they need
yeah.
for you to also already be their friend and
Yes.
not make that
Right.
friendship, that companionship based on conditions. You know,
Behavior.
we always talk about our dogs loving us unconditionally, and then we put all those conditions on it. You know,
Right.
and unfortunately, and I don't want to fault the dog parents for that, because that is something that is pushed by the industry. Exactly, Mary. And when we help the human, we've helped the dog. And yes, one human
Yeah.
at a time. That's exactly right. And so, but as an industry, we are failing because we are pushing the training narrative so much.
And we're pushing the training narrative as the way to become, for the dog to become what we want, right?
Do you know
And
when you tell a kid, when a child says, nobody likes me, I don't have any friend, I'm trying so hard, and then as a parent you might say, yeah, but you can't force somebody to be your friend.
right.
So you can't train somebody to be your friend either. It's transactional.
Right.
You can't buy
Right.
your friends. Maybe some people are able to do that. If they have plenty of money, all of a sudden, everybody wants to be your friend, but they're not real friends. It's superficial. It's not
Yeah.
true friendship. It's not true companionship when you put a value on something.
Yeah.
And but you mentioned, so you asked what triggered it. So the Dog Day Festival was only one event. Another one, and there are two more. Another one was a case you have worked with, and you have messaged to us just a few days ago, just a couple
Mm-hmm.
days ago,
Yep.
and it unfortunately, that case, and I'm just going to throw it out there, no names mentioned or anything, but that case ended with behavioral euthanasia without you knowing about it
Right. It wasn't the
beforehand.
client, it was just, someone who needed some support and some help.
Yes.
So we were there. I was there to try and just give them the support they needed so that they could make the best decision that they needed to make. And
And okay, real quick, it was a bite. It was a bite to a
mhm,
child's face, and it
mhm.
resulted in stitches.
Yes,
Okay, so it was a more severe
it was
bite,
a pretty
and
severe bite.
yeah,
Yes,
and to the face, and then the people made that decision to
there was,
surrender the
yeah,
dog,
it was a
and
matter of couldn't keep the dog because his daughter was so traumatized, and couldn't even keep the
yes,
dog temporarily because you can't find a shelter that's going to take him. It's hard to find a rescue that'll take him at least right away, and it just wasn't feasible. But that's a situation where,
has
like you
that
say, society and the industry failed that situation.
dog been through training before?
Um, in the home
Hmm.
with the
The parents?
family had training
Hmm.
experience in the past, had raised puppies and things in the
So
past,
they've had training
but
experience.
they had training experience, and they were saving up. Like, this is a situation where they were saving up for the level of training that they felt they needed
Hmm.
for this dog, because that's a situation of society and the industry failing people where it was so out of reach to get the help that they felt they needed, the level of help that they felt this dog needed.
Hmm.
Um, and so, that's a situation that's a completely, another path we could go into, which is
Yes.
the affordability or the accessibility of services and help. Not that, professionals don't deserve to charge, but it's sad, especially with how many animals are in need of homes, that only the rich can afford dogs.
Yeah.
Or
And
afford dogs the way that dog lovers think dogs should be,
but it is
cared for, with the
another
most
one.
expensive vet care and the most expensive training and the most expensive food. And so,
But the
yeah.
affordability is another another element where the dog training industry is failing. You know,
Yeah.
so we have the board and trains that charge thousands of dollars
Thousands.
for 2 or 3 week classes, and or board and train classes and or training, and then we have our plus trainers who want to book 5 or 10 sessions, you know, and
Yep.
keep coming back, and again, you know, when we talk to a client, it's usually a one session issue. Sometimes a client is, if it's a more severe case, they want to book a 3 session package. Then we do the first session, and then maybe a month later we do the second session, and all of a sudden I don't hear from them anymore about the third one until a year later, because they can help themselves. And so affordability is another one. So when I hear that somebody has a really horrible time, and we're keeping the dog, might be risky, even though there might not have been a bite yet. But if I know that it is that urgent, and if I know that those people might not have a whole lot of money or whatever, I'm just gonna go and do it.
Yeah.
I love dogs enough to want to help them make it work. And so I just go out and do it. I mean, if I don't help them, I don't get the money either. So if I help them, who cares if I get that money? Granted, I have a full-time job, but I don't ever want this to be about money. You know, like, yes, it's a business, but it shouldn't be our main focus. We need to keep that in
Capitalism
mind.
is a disease.
Yes.
And it's, you know, again, I don't necessarily in this case want to necessarily go off on, you know, blame the trainers necessarily either, because it is their livelihood, but it is a societal issue. And it's a societal issue when an animal that makes one mistake, I don't care, like, fine, maybe if you mauled somebody to death, but biting a child in the face, or biting a child because they did something stupid and the dog got pissed off, especially if it was a buildup of things, which I don't know if in this case whether that was, then that's a dog that got pissed off in the moment, had a lot of stress, let it out in one go because they didn't have the support they needed in that moment, or maybe for, you know, a little bit before that. You know, it's a situation of stress, right? It's like a guy punches another guy, or, you know, whatever. We have this society mentality of, oh, they're unforgivable, they're irredeemable, you know, we have to put them away, they're a danger to society. And so we treat dogs the same way we treat our people, which is one chance and you're gone, and you're irredeemable, and you're a danger to society, so we've got to put you away. So, and part of that's, of course, there's the issue of just there being too many dogs. You know, trying to spend all that time and money rehabilitating one dog takes that away from a dog that doesn't have that history. So it's just this big societal issue that's a capitalism issue, it's a colonialism issue, it's a big issue. But that is one thing that this industry and many industries fail at, is providing that affordability for services that for living creatures should be a service that's required, like it's a service that's needed.
And you know, and we don't have to make a habit of it. And I usually tell people, please don't tell anybody that I cut my rate, or that, you know, I don't want that to be the normal thing. But what I want to be normal, and what I would like for us to normalize, is that if there is a risky situation, let's just help, because there are
if she had
plenty
gotten
others out
support,
there.
if that dog had gotten support 6 months ago that was affordable, this would have been prevented, right?
Yeah, and the other thing is, and that's the big one where the industry fails, is that we want to sell, of course we want to sell sessions, okay? But the narrative that's out there is you have to have training. Training costs money. And not enough, there's not enough information provided for free that helps dog parents understand that there's something other than training, that it is a relationship thing. So everything, all the talk out there is still, even the groups and the organizations that talk about emotions and that talk about emotion regulation and that talk about relationships,
It's still
they
training centric.
still focus on training. They still focus on behavior modification, which costs money and which takes a long time. And so that's again where the industry fails, is because they make the world believe that the dog has to be trained. That's the big lie. That your dog is misbehaving, your dog needs to be trained, you need to control your dog. That notion that we have to be constantly in control is a huge lie. And yes, do we need to have control so that my dog cannot run over there and bite somebody? Yes, but that control doesn't come through training or through force or even treat coercion. That control comes through the relationship.
I'm
I
not
have watched.
training my daughter. I don't train my toddler not to go into the road. She
Yes.
knows, because of our relationship, she listens when I say, hey, let's stop. I need you to stop right there.
Yes.
Right? And she does. And if she
Yes.
starts to move a little bit faster than I feel comfortable with, then I catch up with her. We hold hands and we take care of it. But for the most part, I can vocally just say, hey, sweetie, let's go this way, or up, can you stop and watch for cars? And she understands, oh yeah, watch for cars. And she sees cars and she gets this concept. Now, obviously, I don't know how much dogs, grasp the, oh, a car might be coming versus it's right
Yes.
there. But
Yes.
there is an ability to communicate in a relationship-centric way rather than a command, stop
Yes.
or stay or wait. That's a very different relationship from communicating with your dog in a way that's because you are focused on me and we have a bond. I can say something and you'll notice me and you'll listen and you'll look to me, not
Yes.
because we've trained it necessarily, but because we're in the habit of being connected and communicating with each other.
Yes. And because they learn to trust your judgment.
Mm-hmm.
Because you help them stay safe. You
Right.
help them feel safe. And so I have some notes here. So
Yeah.
because I don't want to
I'm
forget
going to be taking
anything.
us a little off topic here and there, I'm sure. So definitely
Yeah,
glad
no,
you have
and
your
that's
notes, because
okay.
I'm sure I will take us off on tangents.
Well, so there's that another thing where we fail is that we focus so much on the method of how we train, and whereas any kind of training that focuses on behavior modification is a letdown for the dog parents and for the dogs. And yes, Kelly,
Exactly.
totally. And so there are two good examples of what I'm trying to get at is, Alyssa, you might remember I've just sent you guys I shared a video with you where somebody raised a little alligator. And now, granted, in that video, they used different animals because a couple of times they showed footage of a crocodile, and then the rest of the times it was an alligator. And it's very easy to see the difference. But the story, the plot of that story was still that the human and the animal bonded like that. Well, now an alligator or a crocodile, it doesn't matter. They're big lizards, okay? They are millions of years old. And when the human started scratching them, okay, under the chin and everything, the alligator was closing the eyes, and you could almost see the animal melt into that touch. Okay, so that is not a typically social animal. they live in social environments, but I don't know if they need one another. I don't know enough about it, although I know that alligators, after they laid their eggs, their care system is very, very strong to where they don't even want to kill something else a whole lot. Okay, so there has been footage where alligators might actually get a deer out of the waters and put it back on land, for example. But that's the females after they laid eggs, they become extremely caring. But to accept that kind of care from a human, that to me is extraordinary. And that shows me just how adaptable the brain is and how the endogenous opioids can change the brain to where enemies become the best friends. And another one was that little buck that I took care of. Well, I didn't take care of. Our neighbors rescued, and but I became friends with, and we cuddled. I've never fed that little guy, but we cuddled, and he literally, I mean, he rubbed up against me and cuddled with me like a dog would. And unfortunately, Fish and Wildlife, they killed him because he said they said that he would get dangerous and as he grows up. But when you have that relationship that is based on emotional needs that affects the endogenous opioid system through care, not through food, but through care. And so that's a whole lot different than when you build that relationship based on food rewards, which is a dopamine, mostly a dopamine thing, and it increases expectations. And then when expectations are not met, frustration sets in, and then aggression will set in.
Yes,
That's
so
how
the
people get
touch
hurt.
is a calming thing, whereas
Yeah,
the treats are an excitatory thing. And
exactly.
so, yeah.
Even though treats still give you a little opioid high, endogenous opioid high, it can still happen, but that's different. Those opioids are different than the ones that are being released through care because there's more that because of the receptors and all that technical stuff. But one is excitatory and increases expectation, and the other one is parasympathetic, and it just causes you to bond more. So would that bug have hurt me? There's no doubt in my mind that he wouldn't have, because our relationship was not built on expectations. It was built on bonding. So there's a huge difference. And again, that is one thing where the dog training industry fails the public, because we make it sound like the training, whether we use punishment or reward, is the only way to build that good relationship. And so then there was another one that where we fail, and that's I'm just going to use my cards here, and that gets me a little bit into balanced as well, but not just balanced. And so again, we are trained, we are taught that dog training is kind of binary. It's either balanced and aversive, or it is R plus and force free. But both of them are designed to change the dog's behaviors.
That's the thing is, yes, that's a binary, right? You've got this scale of this or this. The problem is it's not a scale. There's other options.
Yes. And training is not the answer for behavior, but for problem behaviors, because problem behaviors are an emotional thing, and you cannot train emotions away. You can only suppress them. And so my huge question is, and this is where hopefully even when people watch this back later, we might get some, hopefully we might get some comments on that, and we might get some thoughts on it. And because I really would like to brainstorm that, even if we do it through commenting, is so right now the public thinks that there are two ways, two different methods to choose from. One is the cookie pusher. The other one is the aversive trainer. Okay, and I say cookie pusher because that is something that is being used a lot, especially when people look at R pluses in a cynical way. And so I look at both of them in a cynical way just for right now. So those are the two options. A lot of dog parents go back and forth. Okay, if one doesn't work, then they try to find another one. But typically, if they look for training, they probably look for aversive training in the first place, because we all have been, at least my generation still, we have been raised with, because I said so. I want you to do this. I don't have to explain myself to you because I said so. Okay. And so because we have grown up that way, we kind of project that onto our dogs. So naturally, we might be looking for a training method that falls right into that narrative, just because it is something we are familiar with. It was expected from us when we were little, so now we are expecting that from our dogs. And our parents might have used punishment at some point, whether was physical or it was by taking things away from us or whatever, or denying us access to whatever, then that's still punishment based. Then we're going to project that this is how we've learned. And this is how we have learned that those that are inferior to us need to be handled and controlled. But so balanced trainers have a huge advantage on that, okay? And our plus trainers, so what I'm trying to get at is what causes us, what causes some dog parents to actually hire one over the other, whether it's R plus over balanced or the other way around. A friend, well, it's not really a friend, it's just somebody I know. His dog, or their dogs, they wear a prong collar, a shock collar, their regular collar, and the light on the shock collar is always blinking. And I mean, it's almost like the dog is armed to the teeth. You know, it's like they're wearing this punishment armor. And they have paid $3,000 for that training. They love their dogs. They absolutely love their dogs, okay? They don't want to hurt their dogs. So what drives them to go back to that trainer for their second dog and their third dog? What causes them to go there? And
This is,
mm-hmm.
I was just gonna say, this is the mystery that I think puzzles a lot of our plus trainers is, you know, what is it that they have that they've got that we don't got, right? And you know, balance trainers would argue that there's more success on their end, and our plus would argue that it's equal success, and you know, it's just not knowing. Yeah, it's the conundrum. It's not knowing what it is that's being done on one end that's convincing people to choose that, because I would definitely argue that what's termed balance training, right, where there's a supposed balance between rewards and punishers, is seems to be more popular, seems to be more familiar. Like you said, there's probably a lot of familiarity to it. And so, yeah, we'd love to hear, like, what got you to choose one, and then if you
over the other.
switched, what got you to choose the other? Like, what are the thought patterns and beliefs and feelings, and what was convincing for that? Because I feel like that would be some great research, right, on what is
Yes.
it that gets people to choose a trainer, because I really deeply believe that it's more than just methods.
Yes.
As much as we like to argue methods and we like to focus on methods and say my method's better, ultimately the individual trainer somebody picks, I think, has a lot more to do with other factors than
Yes.
just what the method is.
Yes.
And we
And
often,
also,
one thing that ADD talks about a lot is the human connection. And I think that there are some trainers that are a lot better at
yes.
connecting with the people and making the people feel heard than other trainers.
Yeah.
So,
And also, you know, and again, that's where the dog training industry fails. There is this, right now, there's this almost open war going on between the top guy in the R plus world and the top guy in the balanced world, or in the punishment based world. They are feuding, and but both of them miss the point. Okay, one says you are wrong because you're not science-based, and the science goes against punishment. The other one says, no, you are wrong because you don't do what it takes to help this dog, because you're not even working with those extreme aggression cases. Okay, so but neither one of them considers what the human, the dog owner, the dog parent might need to feel safe. Neither one of them can get that across in their conversations with one another, that the human part of that whole equation matters too. So there's this person in Canada who was on another in another group, and was talking about his dog, a big dog, being so darn reactive, and he was asking for some, you know, some little hints. And so somebody tagged me on that, and the dog in his picture was wearing a prong collar. So he got really torn down. I mean, he was, some people on there were really abusive towards him for abusing his dog. Okay, so it's okay for us to abuse the human, even though he is not a trainer, he's a dog owner. He asked for help. As an industry, the majority of people that were on there were trainers. So one R plus trainer was talking about, well, if you hand me over your prong collar, I give you one session for free. Okay, so I was like, he doesn't need a session. He just needs to know what he needs to do. And that doesn't take a whole session. Yeah, but and I said the prong collar helps him feel safe. Okay.
and he's
And I
not gonna be
said,
able to do diddly squat for his dog if he's in a constant
yes,
state of fear and anxiety.
exactly. So I told that other trainer, I said, when I work with that guy, he doesn't have to give me his prong collar. He can use it if he wants to. But I know that he won't want to anymore. Which
And
is
that's the
exactly
key.
what happened.
Yeah.
So I was
And that's the key.
I
It's
was
not
on
about.
Zoom with him.
Oh,
Yeah.
oh sorry. Go
I
ahead.
was on Zoom with him for I was on Zoom with him for 20 minutes, okay? And in those 20 minutes, I have taught him some things that he has never heard of before. He has never heard of before. He has paid hundreds of dollars to a balanced trainer. He said he didn't like what the balanced trainer did because he inflicted too much pain. he wanted to use a shock collar. So he said, I just walked away from the money that I gave him. So he tried to help himself. So there was somebody who still used the prong collar, but walked away from a balanced trainer because he didn't like that the balanced trainer was inflicting pain that he paid hundreds of dollars for. And so I'm not going to judge a person like that. You know, that person is out to do things better, to find a better way. And so, but nobody has ever explained the things that I have explained to him in just 20 minutes. And so at the end, and then he also went outside, and I coached him a little bit while he was outside, and that was just on Zoom, 20 minutes over the phone, and with a video call. And afterwards I said, so how do you feel about it? And he said, I have never seen him act that way before. And we did not focus on behavior modification. The behavior changed automatically. It came with the territory of emotional connection. And then he said, so I said, do you think you can try this without the prong collar? He said, well, I can try. I'm not sure yet. I said, well, you know, you could make yourself that promise of that commitment of, you know what, because I told him what he can do. I said, if you make that commitment of not wanting to use the prong collar anymore, then you are going to handle your dog in a way that helps you both with your relationship. And that was about a month ago, and he has not used the prong collar since. So I didn't have to have a transactional thing. You know, there was no, if you do this, then I can do this. You know, it was about relationship building.
And
so,
but to feel safe enough,
but he needed
first.
to feel safe.
And
yes.
Of course, our you know, our personal philosophy, of course, is force free. We are force free, but
yes, but not R plus.
We're force free for both the dog and the human. And it's not that we're going to say, yes, use this tool. Yes, we encourage this. Yes, this, you know, this is what you need. But we will say, if that's what you need right now, otherwise, what's going to happen? They're either going to find another trainer that says, yes, use that, or they're just going to continue on with what they're doing. So we want to get the owner feeling, recognizing that we are there for them, that we are there to support them in what decision they need to make to help themselves feel safe, so that they can feel safe enough and have that oxygen mask on themselves, right? So that they can then support and help their dog. And it's quick. It can be so quick to do that. If we can focus on the human's needs as well, or even first, because again, the dog is reliant on their human being regulated in order for them to get support. And if the human is not regulated, if the human is in panic mode or anxiety mode, then they are not going to be able to support their dog and be there and be present for their dog.
Yes. And you know, it's easy for me to tell people, no, I'm not going to take your prong collar away from you, because I know exactly that we won't use
it's going to go away anyway.
Because when I work with somebody, we're not going to work while the dog is wearing the prong. Okay, I'm just not going to tell them ditch the prong. You know, it's just during that session we're going to be working without the prong. And but I'm not going to tell them to ditch the prong up front, especially, you know. So it's easy for me to go into that and into a session like that where I can tell them, no, you know, I'm not going to talk you out of using the prong, because you have a right to feel safe, but I am going to show you how you can feel safe, and then you can make the decision.
That's the difference right there, is the talking versus the showing.
And I have enough confidence in ADB and in how I handle a situation that I know they're not going to need the prong. So it's easy for me to allow them to allow them to think about the prong.
They're going to not have the pressure that they have to lose it, right?
Yes. Because I grant them that right and that choice, they're way more open-minded. They don't feel like it's somebody is trying to force them into something that they are not ready to do. They have to
Yeah.
feel safe. And that guy, he has physical ailments, which is something that nobody knew on that in that group. And still, the trainers also got on his case without even knowing the circumstances. So with him, we have to be careful because that big dog can hurt him in a heartbeat. So we have to listen to our clients, and it's like going to the doctor. The doctors need to listen to us because I am the one who feels what's wrong, and our human clients are the ones who know what they need, and sometimes they don't, and we show them what they need. That's another one where another point that I want to make. So, and that's probably the last point that I want to make. So when people call me about a training session, again, the majority of them actually call about obedience training. One of the biggest complaints that I am getting here from dog owners is my dog doesn't listen. My dog is stubborn. Stubborn, everybody knows the stubborn part, but my dog doesn't listen. He needs to learn to follow my commands. I want him to learn to follow my commands. He needs to listen to my commands. He needs to, if I say something, I want him to do it. And so that's usually how the conversations start. And I'm always very, very open with because to me, transparency is important. So people don't go into a training session expecting something other than what I want to do. And so they know very early on, and I'm careful with how I word it, depending on how they word things. I will tell them at some point though that I don't do obedience training, and if they after our conversations, if that is still what they want to do, then I'm going to give them a number, because we have a positive reinforcement trainer in town. We have two, and but usually probably 99%. Actually, I've not had one that said, I don't want to work with you. I have not had a single one yet. And so, but what I get at then when I talk to them is I ask a lot of questions. How do you feel about this? How do you handle this? And what do you want to get out of it? If they still insist on obedience training, then I tell them things like, okay, now I'm going to tell you how I work, and then you tell me if this is what could fit your needs, or maybe not. Then I'm going to give you a different phone number, and then I use that, and I tell them the reason why I don't do obedience training is because obedience is not going to help your dog, and it is not going to help you. So that's always my lead in into a more open mind. And then I ask him, so, and I always talk in forms of how most people usually just want to have a good relationship. So when you say something like that, when you tell somebody, most people just want to have this nice bond, this friendship with their dog, not necessarily a robot, but they want to have this companionship with their dog where they can trust each other and they can support each other. And when I say most people do, everybody wants to be like most people, and all of a sudden it comes out, well, that's actually what I would like to have too. And I'm like, okay, but that's not, you don't need training for that. teaching a dog to sit on command doesn't give you that relationship, you know, but knowing what's going through your dog's head gives you that relationship. Knowing how to bond with your dog and how to recognize your dog's needs and so on. So the over time, I have come to the conclusion that one reason why every single person calls about training is because, again, that is the narrative the training industry has pushed.
Training is the solution to disconnection, and it's not.
Yes.
And it's caused actually a lot of disconnection.
Yes.
I am convinced that overtraining and an overemphasis on training
Yes.
as the way to get a good dog is what is behind so much of the behavior problems we're seeing now.
Yes.
Because dogs are becoming more and more disconnected from their people despite all their efforts. And so they are getting bigger and bigger behaviors in a desperate attempt to get that connection that they need, because we're so overly focused on training as the solution to
Yes.
everything for our dogs. And so people are becoming more and more training minded rather than it being relationship with maybe training on the side if you happen to want to teach your dog some behaviors. Now it's training, and training is the route to relationship. And it's not. It's a completely separate thing that is much smaller than we as an industry have made it out to be.
Yes.
Relationship is what creates good behavior, right? Because when you feel connected and you feel good, you are not spazzy for the most part. You are not aggressive. You are not, frightened. When you feel connected and safe, you are calm. You are content, you are playful, you are confident, right?
Yes.
When we are in a relationship and in an environment where we feel safe, you're not going to see explosive behavior. You're not going to see hyperactive behavior, because needs are being met and the brain doesn't need to expend energy trying to meet needs.
Exactly.
Right? And that's what those behaviors are, is the brain expending energy in a desperate attempt to meet needs. So I am convinced that an excessive focus on training as solution and training as relationship has led to so many of the increase in behavior problems that we've seen. It's not that life is more complicated and human life is so difficult for dogs to adapt to. It's purely, in my opinion, it's purely that training has become the umbrella solution to everything with our dogs, and relationship has taken a backseat.
And you just mentioned that life is not that complicated. Unfortunately, the dog training industry has made it complicated.
Yes.
And
that's a fair point.
People are always, and yes, there are times when I feel guilty. I feel guilty sometimes taking money for what I do, because it's so simple and people get it. They get it instantly.
It's natural.
Because it is natural. It's just never been an option for them. It's never been an option to just be.
They're paying us to give them permission to have a relationship.
Yes.
A bonded relationship with their dog.
You know what? It's way better than paying me to give me permission to hurt their dog.
Yeah.
We are giving them a different solution, one that we are born with already. And I mean, we work ourselves out of, I rarely get follow-up sessions because they're not necessary. And the other day I quoted my regular fee, okay, and she happily agreed to it. She just moved here, and I guess what I quoted was within that range that she was used to. And she happily agreed to it. She has done so much right. She's done such a fabulous care first job already with her dog, okay, that there was not much I could teach her. There were a few things, like jumping up and stuff like that. So there were a few things, but it was one of the easiest sessions I've had because she has done everything so right. And yes, the dog showed a little bit of excitement when there were other dogs or other people out on the walks, but not reactivity, not like in a negative way excitement, just exuberance, you know. And so we went out, we went on the walk, and the dog didn't pull because I showed her how to get the dog not to pull, and it was one of the easiest sessions. And I I actually cut my fee. I told her, "You're doing so good. It's such a pleasure to just be here with the two of you, with both of you." And I said, just promise me that you keep going this way. I gave you some hints. If you need more, then we can do it on the phone. I don't charge for phone, and you understand more now, and I can just walk you through stuff on the phone if you ever have any problems, which I doubt that you will have. And I even cut my fee. That was the first time I have done that, just because it was such an easy thing. And
It was like
the
being the yes man and just being like, yep, that's what you do. Yep,
yes,
that's what you
yes,
do. Here's a little
but
slight tweak to that. Yep, that's what you do.
but
That's funny.
she thought she had to get that training, you know,
Yep. And
and you should have seen
the
her
fact that
face.
we are making dog owners doubt
Yeah,
their ability to
yes,
bond with and have a normal, content, happy family dog just by having a relationship and being with them, that is
yeah,
a big failure on the part of the industry. We have convinced, in order to get in order for the industry to survive, we have to
I
convince
know.
people that they have a need even when they don't. And so we have all these people doubting because, oh, I'm not training my dog, so I must be doing it wrong. Well, is your dog well behaved? Well, yeah, then you're fine. Like,
I
you got your
know.
dog has one or two behavior issues, slight tweak, you're fine.
But the sad thing is, you know, if you just tell them over the phone, that's not what they
They won't
want
believe
to
it.
hear.
Yeah.
You literally have to go there in person. And I mean with that lady too, there were some things I was able to show her, and you know, because she was worried. That dog is like 8 or 9 months old and weighs 90 pounds. And it's a big dog. She's a big dog, and oh my gosh, I've totally fell in love with that dog. And she yeah, she tried to jump up on me too. So I showed her what to do so the dog won't jump up on me. The dog only tried one time, which was unusual. She said usually he pesters people all the time. She pesters people all the time. And so that was, you know, I already won her over right when I got there and walked in the door, and her dog was not jumping up on me like crazy. So, but I didn't use force, I didn't use treats, I didn't use cues, I just did what I did. And so that already won her over as far as her having confidence in what I'm going to tell her is going to be the right thing. So me then telling her, please keep going this way, it was like a confirmation in what she was doing instead
And how
of
many dogs have ended up with behavior issues because people jumped in too early thinking they needed to focus on training all the time and created, that disconnection cycle
yes.
that resulted eventually in how many dogs has that been the situation? I mean, these are the kind of studies I wish there was funding for. I wish somebody would go in and just go, okay, let's see what people are doing. Obviously there's so many other factors, genetics slightly, and early experiences and stuff like that. But it's an interesting thought to think, how many of these behavior dogs that are being surrendered for behavior issues, especially the young ones, right? So many dogs are surrendered under 2 years of
Oh
age
my
because
God.
people get a puppy and then can't handle what results, right? But how many of those isn't because they didn't focus on training? How many of those are because they over focused on training and ended up with a disconnection that resulted in a dog developing other habits, other coping
Yeah.
mechanisms to meet those needs?
Yes,
Yeah, and Donna says,
exactly.
like us, dogs need to feel safe, to feel they belong, to feel heard, to be connected. Exactly.
Yes.
And we sometimes think that we're connecting with our dog when we're giving them treats or something like that. But it's like, a lot of times it's like the difference between, you know, your partner walking in and you think that what they want is a hug, but what they really want is to be left alone, or what they really want is for you to sit and listen to them quietly while they rant about their workday. Or, you know, if you're being kind, but you're meeting the wrong, you're doing the wrong thing, it's not going to meet the need, right? And so dogs feeling safe, feeling like they belong, feeling heard, feeling connected, that is all about being able to watch and listen and not just do what we want to do or what we think the dog needs, but really truly, what does this dog need? And especially in a society where so many doggy behaviors are taboo. You're not allowed to let your dog mouth you. Oh no, don't wrestle with your dog. That's terrible. Dogs have to wrestle, guys. That is
Yes.
literally in their brain circuitry that free play is a necessity.
Yeah.
And so if the only play we're doing with our dog is structured play, there is a unmet need there. If all we're doing, if we're assuming that an excitable dog needs exercise or play rather than that he's trying to get your attention so you'll cuddle with him, we're meeting the wrong need, right? And so you're going to have a dog that's getting more and more spazzy because he needs help calming down, right? The brain releases dopamine. It doesn't go, oh, I need to calm down, so I'm going to release a different chemical. No, it needs you to release the calming chemicals, or chewing, or, you know, some other behaviors, but those are the behaviors we have issues with, right? And so if you want a calm dog, you need to recognize when what they're looking for is calm, even if they're hyper about it, because the dopamine makes you hyper. The dopamine
And
says,
there's no
go
off switch.
find the need,
There's no
right?
off switch.
Yeah. It's like being in the desert. Your brain's not going to go, oh, there's no water here, so you might as well not try, right? Your brain's going to keep escalating that dopamine to get you motivated to dig for water, to do something to find water. Well, if your need is cuddles because you're stressed or you're scared or you're sad, your brain's not going to go, oh, let's be calm. No, it's not. It's going to go find someone to give you cuddles. And it's going to increase that dopamine. And if you don't get it when you first ask for it, you're going to start looking spazzy. And that's what we see. And so if you're meeting the wrong need, if you think your dog is excitable because they need exercise or playtime, and it turns out they're excitable because they just want you to cuddle them and pay attention to them, then you're going to have behavior problems. So again, it's not that we're not caring about our dogs. We care about our dogs. We're trying to love on our dogs. We're trying to meet their needs. But when we focus on the outward behavior and go, oh, I need to stop this, or I need to reward this, or this means, you know, whatever, he looks excitable, so he must need exercise, right? When we focus on outward behavior and focus on consequences, then we miss the internal processes and we miss the need for connection that's inherent behind those behaviors.
But the
Sorry.
thing is, you know, as far as trainers, you know, they have to learn to understand those internal processes first.
Yep.
And I want to pull up one thing real quick. Because I shared this. I think I shared it early this morning, and that's where one of our members here in the group has allowed me to use that and share that, and I told her I would not use a name, and so I checked in with her to see how she was doing. And so I'm just going to read a little bit of that. Thank you. Things are going well. Like any living creature, we have better days and worse days, but overall, I'm seeing positive changes, which I am happy about. Okay. And then she wrote, it's definitely been a bigger change on my end, realizing that I can't help him be emotionally regulated if I'm not emotionally regulated, such as if I want to lash out at him for lashing out, which is what all balanced trainers teach on some level. In parentheses, she has aversive tools which involve communicating to the animal that they are doing something wrong. And many R plus trainers teach saying stop or no, redirecting, rather than stopping and being like, what's up? You good? What are you missing? What are we missing, etc. So she sees that in both now, balanced and R plus training, because they're so similar. You know, they're actually
It's
so
still about
similar. It's
changing
amazing.
behavior.
Yeah, it's amazing how they feud so much. And then she says, and even asking myself those questions. Yesterday we had an iffy walk where neither of us were very regulated, so we just went home and cuddled. Sometimes it's not a walk kind of day, and it's okay to not be a walk kind of day, rather than training through it.
Yes, and we're so as oh sorry. I was
One
just going to
more.
say, as humans, we're so conditioned to have to just push through and do what has to be done because that's how society is
Yes,
built. So we're a little
exactly.
traumatized around. I just have to do the thing, and I'm not allowed to
Yeah,
take a break or do something
it's a
different because this is what I
it's a
have to
good
do right
training
now.
chance, and it's a good training opportunity, you know. And then she
Yep.
said, Scott really flipped a good switch. I always did balance training myself, and he wrote at one point that aversive tools are to assist the trainer's emotional regulation, not for the dogs. So knowing that the tool is something I use to emotionally regulate myself, I've been able to turn away from using them better than I ever could through shame, which is what R plus trainers use to try to convince balance trainers to not use tools. So that was something that was sent to me last night, and I shared this morning. And I shared it with the group this morning, and that was another one that fit right into this conversation.
Yep.
Because she talked about, you know, it's not about, we don't need to be shaming people for having that need to feel safe.
We need to give them
We need
a
to help.
different way to feel safe, and you can't do that unless they trust you and feel safe with you.
Exactly.
So you have to
And
build that relationship and that trust and safety first if you're going to convince anybody of anything.
exactly. So if we want to beat aversives, okay, we don't need to be doing it through regulations. We don't need to be doing it through laws, unless they want to strengthen animal cruelty laws. We need to do it by having an alternative for our clients. That's the only way to do it. It's the only way to do it. And R plus, unfortunately, is not always the alternative either, because there's a lot of work involved in that. Work that, and a lot of homework, and a lot of time commitment and money commitment. And we wonder why our clients don't follow through and then switch to a technique that promises instant success, which, yes, when you use pain, you have instant success, you know. But is it truly success, or is it just, you know, masking an issue, masking the
And that's something,
need?
yeah,
Go ahead.
that's something I wanted to expand on briefly with her mentioning the, you know, R plus trainers do this as well, is just to point out that the punishing a dog or a person or anybody for something you don't like is not much more of a stretch than giving than nicely telling them to not do it, right? If your dog is freaking out and you're redirecting them or you're training a different alternative behavior, you are still giving the same impression of your emotions are unacceptable here, right? And every social animal wants to fit in. It doesn't matter whether you're using punishment or whether you're using rewards, you are still teaching your dog how to fit in. And if you're doing that, then you are not supporting your dog and helping them to feel heard. You are teaching them to suppress and hold back their expression of how they're feeling. You're not changing how they're feeling, you're changing them to change how they express how they're feeling. And that's the same slippery slope that it is with punishers.
Yes.
Because now you have a dog that is suppressing with rewards, right? It's nice, but they are still suppressing their expression, their natural expression. And I'm not saying that we should just let dogs willy-nilly behave however they want to behave, but they will change their behavior when they feel safe. And rewards and punishers are not helping them feel safe and heard and wanted and acknowledged. They need to feel that you are hearing them, that you are supporting them, that you are there for them unconditionally before they will be able to step up and feel better enough that those behaviors are no longer necessary.
Yes.
So, and yes, Alfie Kohn, I love, Donna, thank you for mentioning Alfie Kohn. That's a great book, The Punished by Rewards. It's focused on kids, but it's absolutely applicable. Sorry.
No, I'm sorry. Just as it is important for us to recognize that the human on the other end of the leash also has needs. So for us as canine professionals, as trainers, and I hate to call myself a trainer, but that's still, even that is something that bothers me, you know, and or a coach, you know, even so where we are letting that or where we are failing, and you just mentioned that first point, is you know, that we are stressing the training parts too much, way too much. Training can come after we have that's why we call it care first. Care has to come first. And if then you still, because some people have fun getting into trick training or whatever, but the trick training shouldn't be the way to a relationship. The relationship should pave the path to, let's say, trick training, not the other way around. So the care has to come first, and but the care for our human clients has to come first as well. And to teach our human clients that training is training is the solution, is not a care first approach to our human client, because we need to act more like therapists when it comes to that than like trainers, which is also why we named our certification, our full certification, affective canine therapist therapy. And so you know, if we take on that kind of mindset, then we are listening better to our human clients and understand what their needs are, and we find a way to figure out what exactly they need. And again, the majority of people who call me on the roundabout way, I always get to the point, or have them, or get them to actually agree that they just want to have a good relationship. They just want to have a good life with their dog. And we are failing them by not giving them what they need. And whether it is because trainers don't know any better, or it's because they just want to prove the other method to be wrong, because R Plus wants to prove that they always want to show that there is a way other than balanced. And the balanced trainers want to show that they can save lives, because R plus trainers, there is a lot of behavioral euthanasia or whatever. All that bickering back and forth is not going to help meet the human, the dog parents' needs. our professional bickering back and forth is not going to take care of the human's needs. The only thing that takes care of that is to talk to the client and help them figure out what they really want. And when they first contact you, they won't even know what they want, because what they want is not available on the big picture of the dog training.
Yeah.
And
They don't know it's an option. It's
they-
this method or that
exactly.
method or that method, and they don't even know that there's an option to just not do training, to
Yes.
just focus on rebuilding the connection and rebuilding the bond. That's not a training thing. That should
Nope.
never be a training thing. Relationship is not a training thing. As much as, you know, the industry has turned it into a training thing, that is not relationship. That is not building relationship.
You wouldn't believe how many times I have told people, I promise you, you don't want a dog trainer. I mean, I am so open with that. Because what do I have to lose? Nothing really. Okay. I'm not going to drop my principles just to fit that narrative. Because I know what else is possible. So, you know, I have told our shelter when I started working with them, I've told them, even though they're paying me, it's not on a volunteer thing, because I'm teaching all their staff there. And we're in a small town. They can go out and start making a business out of what I'm teaching them, you know. And so no, it's not, ADB is not just mine, you know. So it's an ADB thing. I can't just use Scott's knowledge and what he has taught me and give it away for free to an organization that is paid by the city, you know. And so I don't do that. But I did tell them that you have two choices. You either listen to me and you follow through, or I'm not going to be here, because
It's not going to be successful
because
if
they
they
had
can't get on
some,
board.
yeah, they had some there were some moments when some people's egos got the better of them, and I told the director, quite frankly, that ego, when it comes to shelters and rescues, the ego needs to stay at home. The ego is not going to save the dogs. What saves the
Yeah.
dogs is to be able to help the dogs feel at home at the shelter, so that they can thrive there instead of being nervous bundles of fur, you know, and scared. And there's no reason why shelter dogs shouldn't thrive at the shelter, because that is their home at that point in time. Let them.
There are people there.
Yes.
Yep.
And so I'm very open about that. I have nothing to lose. ADB has nothing to lose, you know. So I don't mind talking honestly and putting it the way I feel it is, you know. And so, yeah, the dog training industries, we are failing.
It's really a
and
mess right now. It's
yeah,
again, it's capitalism. It's you need our product,
any
and we're selling, and they've sold the product so thoroughly.
And anytime I hear of a child getting bit in the face, I feel like we failed another family. Whether they already worked with a trainer or not, that's beside the point, because the narrative is already out there.
Exactly.
Those expectations
need
of
to pay
dogs
this
are
much
already out
money
there.
for this method or this method or that method, and there's no talk about reconnecting.
What if the R Plus pushes for certification legislation? You know, I don't think there will ever be like a legislation that requires trainers to be positive and
We're having a hard
force-free
enough
only.
time just increasing abuse
Yeah.
laws, let alone training affecting people's livelihoods. So,
well, the one reason why I don't think that this legislation is ever going to materialize is because the balanced training sector is way too strong. When even the largest rescue organization, Best Friends, utilizes balanced trainers. So
Yeah.
that is not ever going to change, because those big rescues are going to go against that kind of legislation as well. So I don't really think that is ever going to be,
And I
especially not on a
don't think it
federal
would be
level.
effective anyway,
Yeah,
because there are ways of getting around, um, ways of getting around that. You get organizations that are not honest, that are not, that are doing certifications that are not, I mean, we already have that, where there are organizations that are not really following their own values with their certifications. So I don't think it would be
yes.
hard to get certified. If we got legislation that said you have to be certified, I don't think it
And
would be hard to get certified.
then you also have to ask, and that's a little off topic now, then you also have to ask, what kind of science are they going to believe? Is the legislation going to get stuck with Skinner and Pavlov? Or are they going to be open to affective neuroscience?
Which is what we're based on. Yeah.
Yes,
It's like,
because getting
if
stuck.
you're gonna legalize or illegalize, other industries have ongoing, knowledge, right? Updated
Yes,
knowledge, updated tools, updated skills. That kind of, when we talk about continuing education in the dog training industry, it is still all based on the same old science. There is not a lot of new science in behaviorism. It's there's not a lot of new. It's not something we really research much anymore.
if there
And
are.
so
Oh, sorry.
no, I was just gonna say, like, when it comes to, like, we're going into a completely different science.
Yes.
Most industries that doesn't happen. It's here's your certification for this thing, and our industry is unique in that behavior knowledge has gone from being let's observe outward behaviorism, to effective neuroscience, let's look at what's going on in the brain. Those are two completely different sciences.
Yes.
No, I can't think of any other industry where the science, just jumps like that from
Yeah.
we're looking at this and now we're looking at this.
Yeah, and
So I
when
don't see how it would be feasible.
if you look at some certification programs, if they ask you questions about learned helplessness, that's always my go-to example, learned helplessness, and they are still asking you about the science from 1967, then I'm going to how much, how believable and how valid is that certification if they can't move with the science?
Yeah.
So if they are stuck in the 30s, the 40s, the 50s, the 60s, and they look at what's happening today, but they're still going back when it comes to application to behaviorism.
Yeah.
And so if there are certification programs that still ask the same questions about learned helplessness, I'm just not going to believe them. So for me, that piece of paper isn't worth a thing, because they're stuck in the past. They're stuck in old science, which is exactly what causes them to fail the public. That's
Yeah.
part of
The
it.
idea of, and that's that's a hard part with the industry too, is there's so much. No, make sure you find a trainer that's knowledgeable, that has a certification or something behind their name. And yeah, again, it's on top of there being certifications, you can just pay money and you have it, right? On top of that, most certifications are still using the same information that they've used for 60 years. Like,
Yes.
it's the same stuff. There's new bits here and there, of course. A lot of the progress in the industry has been hearsay. What was that post we just saw about fear periods? Fear periods. There is debate on whether fear periods are a thing, because there is a grand total of one research paper on it from the 60s and one observation case study, I guess, sort of, that talk about fear periods. Then that's what we're basing all our knowledge on: fear periods. Everything we talk about in fear periods and dog training is based on those two things, not actual like modern current research. It's based on that. And so it became hearsay. It became this infectious thing that in the industry. And this is something that is talked about in certification programs and taught and part of your certification. So again, like you said, it's like it's hard to take seriously or whatever people that get certifications or people that push certifications or people that, you know, demand that as a requirement, because
Yeah.
I could teach you all sorts of things about behaviorism, you know, all the stuff that I learned, and get you certified based on what I learned in college, and it would be old information. It's old information. So
And
it's
I would even
complex.
take on behavioral veterinary behaviorists, you know.
Mm-hmm.
I would even take
Yeah.
them on because they jump to meds so fast, you
Yeah.
know. And
And that's a
I would
societal issue too, but
I I would even take them on because the brain tells you why some things work and why some things don't work. We just need to, you know. But anyway, getting back to where we are,
giant tangent.
where we are failing the public is by telling the public that, and by having that narrative already out there. So it's not that a single trainer fails their
Right.
client, although that can happen because it's the
We are
overall,
all
the big
victims of the
picture,
industry.
the big picture of the industry even fails the trainers
Yep.
because we keep the trainers
This
in
is what's
that narrative.
acceptable.
Yes. We are even failing the trainers because it's not easy for a trainer to see that what they did is not working out and now they need there was a bite, you know, whether
Yeah.
it's I don't care if it's R plus or if it's balanced. I'm just talking about in general, you know, and then there's a bite. It's not easy for that trainer, you know. It can't
Yeah.
be easy, and it can't be easy to see that my what I'm doing is not really working. And then the dog parent notices that it's not working, and then the dog parent is non-compliant. That's one of the
Yeah.
huge complaints, you know. And that's where the industry fails itself. The industry fails their own trainers, and the industry also fails the public big time on
Yeah.
that. And when we fail the public, unfortunately, we fail the dogs. And
There's
dogs,
very little. Sorry.
go ahead. No,
I
go
was going to
ahead.
say there's very little, and this isn't necessarily a criticism because I was there too. But there's very little critical thinking, individual critical thinking in the industry, because we're so insecure about, well, I don't have a PhD. I don't have,
I don't
you
either.
know, all those 3 or 4 or 5 letters behind my name. I'm not an expert. I haven't been in the industry for 20 years. And so we're sort of, molded into this insecurity, this feeling like we're just never good enough and all these people know better than us, that there's no critical thinking in the industry. There's very little. I can't say no, but there's very little critical thinking in the industry, because the people that are up here don't want to change the status quo because they're making money on it, and for them it's working. And the people down here don't think they know better. They think they know better than they do, and so they don't dare step out of the box. And the
And
only reason
then
I had the guts to step out of the box is because I saw that parenting was stepping out of the box. And I was like, hey, why aren't we changing that in with dogs? Why isn't Why aren't we doing that with dogs? They have brains too. Why aren't we treating them similarly? And that's the only reason I had the guts, is because I had the experts in parenting that were changing the status quo. And so I was like, oh, there's experts here. That makes me feel better that maybe I'm not, crazy for thinking things aren't right.
And then, you mentioned that we created the box. And so, yeah, there's that confidence thing, I don't know. Those people above me, they know better, but there are also the people in the middle or that are above. And those people, I mean, when you think about, goes back to affordability.
They're the enforcers.
When you think about how much some of the R Plus trainers dish out just to get certified, that goes into the thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars. And then to maintain their certification is extremely expensive. Now, show me somebody who dishes out that kind of money for their education.
Yeah.
Only to walk away from it and to admit that
something new.
This was not right. So
yeah.
If it would be less expensive, I can already promise you people would be more open-minded, because they could afford to also look somewhere else, because all the money doesn't have to go, is not being allocated to just one streamlined thing. And so, yeah, that box definitely exists. And for whatever reasons, people are not willing to step outside, some because of confidence issues, others because of ambitions, because they want to get to the top, and others because they already are at the top. They already paid a fortune, and they're not going to turn their back on the money that just because somebody without PhD tells them that, sorry, but you're failing. We're failing the public, And we every single time a dog gets surrendered for behavior issues, every single time a dog gets euthanized for behavior issues, every single time a dog parent
gets
switches method, we have failed. The industry has failed the human and the dog every single time. We have failed because that narrative is already out there. It's already so big that training, I mean, it has even infiltrated the legal systems. That dog hasn't been trained. How many times do trainers have to go to court and owners say, okay, I have lined up a trainer, and because I have lined up a trainer, my dog might get a second chance.
Yep.
And so it has infiltrated the whole. It's so big. And so when I talk about the dog training industry has failed or is failing the public, that's bigger than just your trainer, the trainer you're working with. Could be there too, but it's bigger.
That's why we say the industry.
Huge.
It's not necessarily individual people, but the industry has outgrown the morality and the ethicality.
Yes.
It is capitalism. It's there to make money, and that means creating a demand for itself. And in a weird sort of way, that has happened, where it's creating a demand for itself, making itself more important than it is, and that's causing problems. So
yes. And on that note,
I appreciate all the comments, you guys. Thank you, Kelly, Donna.
Yeah, I
thank
still
you
have
guys
to
for
read
participating.
them. I still have to read them, and
we'll have more discussion in the comments. I'm sure.
Because I'm pretty sure, I'm pretty sure there's going to be more that we need to talk about, and and we don't want to be hard on the industry, because we're part of the industry, but we are trying to
we want us to take a hard look at ourselves.
Yes.
We need to be introspective here.
And we are trying to educate the public differently. The main thing is, so if you're a professional, next time when you talk to a client, so a client calls you, try to find out what the client really needs. But don't just take it from the client calls me about training. Try not to look at it from a training point of view. Try to look at it from what does the client need to feel safe with their dog? Is it, you know, and how can you help them?
How can you
And
support that and coach them through that?
because again, the maturity, and as I said, I have never had somebody who called me walk away from this and tell me that they don't want to work with me, because every single one talks about that's all I want
We all
is
want
have a
that
good
wonderful,
life.
just sweet family dog that we can just love on and cuddle
Yes.
with, you know, and we've been told that training is the way to create that well-behaved dog, and good behavior comes from that connection, and we
Yes.
just want to get back to them.
Yes. And we as humans, we need that connection too.
Yep.
with each other and hopefully we are building a community like that, that is not, yes, as I said, ADB is still, it's still a business, but the main focus of this business is not on just money. Otherwise we would make everything a lot more expensive. We might, but that's not our goal. Our goal is to raise that awareness, as Donna just pointed out, and cause a shift. Because it's for the dogs and it's for ourselves too. We have to have community.
Yep, absolutely.
We have
And thank you
to have
guys for being part of our community.
that connection. Thank you so much for sticking it out for that long, because there was some repetition, and anyway, we really appreciate
Tangents
it.
and all that good stuff.
Yes.
So we do appreciate it, and appreciate your support in your community and listening to us as we rant about our frustrations, and hopefully some of you connected with that and maybe had some insights and thoughts on your part too. So thank you, everyone.
One more thing.
Yes.
So we have a Patreon page. You could join a paid membership. We're just beginning with that. So, or you can join free. There's free. We are building a wonderful, wonderful glossary where we are
Yes.
explaining the different terms that ADB uses. So should you ever want to go for your knowledge certificate, that is another free way to learn about it and to prepare for your certificate, because in that glossary, again, that's publicly accessible, and it's free information. Why not take it? On that
Yep.
note, that's it. Thank you.
All right. Thanks, everyone.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Thanks.